From file leakages to a first-person mode supposedly coming to Fortnite, there is a lot of evidence that this game is going to come to VR, and it's going to come soon. Fortnite has long stood as an absolute titan in the gaming industry. Over the course of this game's 5-year lifetime, people have come to familiarize themselves with its third-person point of view and its shooting and building systems that everyone knows and loves. In concept, it shared a lot of similarities with PUBG at the time. A bunch of players would be dropped into a map in search of weapons, which they would then use to fight each other until there was one remaining player who would be crowned the winner of the match. It found its originality not in its concept, but rather in something else it brought to the table: building. With the introduction of building to the game, people no longer had to search for cover if they were being shot at, as they could just build a wall right in front of them. The building mechanic was super innovative at the time, and to be honest, it still is. Regardless, consumers are still consumers, and 5 years in, they want something new. Fast forward to 2022, and leakers have found a first-person mode in its early stages of development hidden in the game's files. At first, it just seemed like they were adding this to optimize the game for people who prefer first-person shooters as opposed to third-person ones, but upon researching more recent information, it becomes clearer that this first-person mode might be a lot more than meets the eye. According to a leaker by the name of Hypex, the most recent Fortnite update added files referencing Oculus, meaning that VR support for Fortnite is potentially on its way. But as a standalone statement, this lacks a lot of credibility, so why should we believe it? Well, Hypex is one of a few different Fortnite leakers that has accurately and consistently predicted the future of the game. Among these predictions were the return of Tilted Towers to the Chapter 3 map, a whole host of different skins and cosmetics, and a bunch of different collaborations and live events, most of which actually became real. It's unclear whether he's actually digging around in the files for this information or he's getting insider info from a developer at Epic Games. Regardless, he's a fairly trustworthy source of information and leaks about the future events of the game. This isn't the only concrete evidence we really have though. Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, recently invested $2 billion in, you guessed it, the metaverse. This isn't the most solid evidence that Fortnite will be coming to VR, but take into consideration that nobody would invest $2 billion in anything unless they really thought it was going to take off soon. Clearly, Epic Games has a way bigger part in this whole metaverse thing than any of us initially thought. But this intense confidence that Epic Games seems to have in VR brings up an entirely new question. How will this game translate into virtual reality? Well, to put it bluntly, Fortnite VR will probably not be a cross-platform game, and more than anything because of the controls. Using a standard game controller or a keyboard and mouse both have their advantages over VR, and VR controllers have their own advantages over those, meaning that the gameplay balance would always leave somebody at a disadvantage regardless of their skill level. And that's not to mention how difficult it would be to translate all of the different controller inputs to an interface that has half of the buttons. This is an interesting problem, and I'm kind of curious to see how they're gonna solve it. But suppose they do get over that hurdle. Well, they're gonna be left with a completely new obstacle: performance. To compare the hypothetical performance of Fortnite on a Quest 2, we're going to use the Nintendo Switch, which is already running Fortnite at a really low refresh rate and graphical settings. First, let's take the Nintendo Switch. This is running on an NVIDIA Tegra X1 chipset, which at its best can run Fortnite at 1080p and 30 frames per second. It's also worth noting that the Nintendo Switch only needs to display one image, whereas any VR headset needs to display two. The Oculus Quest 2, on the other hand, is run by a Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2, but this has to run two screens at 1440p each, so it would have to display nearly 3.5 times the amount of pixels that a Nintendo Switch processor can. It also has to run with roughly a 90Hz refresh rate in order to prevent motion sickness. This means that for an Oculus Quest 2 to run Fortnite with the same render and texture sizes as a Nintendo Switch can, its processor would have to be just over 10 times as powerful as a Nintendo Switch's. So even if they manage to sort out the imbalance of gameplay due to the controls of each platform, they're still gonna have an issue with render sizes that can disadvantage the VR players anyhow. So all things considered, will you be able to play Fortnite VR with your friends on console or PC? Well, no. But when the VR Fortnite does actually come out, it's not gonna be in unfamiliar territory. We already have a really solid battle royale game on the Quest 2, that being Population 1. Maybe Fortnite VR will bring a lot of competition to the mix, we just don't know yet. Anyway, more than excited, I'm honestly curious to see how this game turns out, if it'll turn out at all. We'll just have to wait a couple of months or maybe even years to see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. This is Justin from Alternate Reality, signing off for now. See ya.